Let's get into it. Smart Rebels question rules. Ever found yourself asking, why do we even do it this way? Even when everyone else seems fine with it. That little spark of doubt. That's not defiance. It's a sign of intelligence. Some of the brightest minds in history weren't rule followers. They were rule questioners. They didn't challenge the norm to stir trouble. They did it to make things better. Take the case of Dr. Ignaz Semmelweis in the 1840s. He noticed that women giving birth in doctors' clinics were dying at alarmingly high rates, far higher than in midwife-run clinics. He made a radical suggestion. Doctors should wash their hands. Sounds obvious now, but back then, he was mocked and ridiculed. But Semmelweis was right. His insistence on hand-washing cut death rates by over 90%. It wasn't until years later, when germ theory finally took hold, that people realized he'd been a genius ahead of his time. But that's what smart rebels do. They notice flaws in the system, connect dots others ignore, and ask hard questions like, is there a better way? Highly intelligent people often don't conform for conformity's sake. They want logic, improvement, innovation. They're willing to be uncomfortable, to be the only voice in the room saying, maybe this doesn't make sense. This kind of thinking takes courage and cognitive independence. It's not about being difficult, it's about being visionary. When you question a rule, you're not always rebelling. Sometimes you're leading. So, if you find yourself constantly challenging how it's always been done, don't let people shut you down. That restless curiosity, that drive to rethink and reimagine, it's not rebellion, it's brilliance in action. Your brain, the decoder, pattern spotting power. Ever recognized a friend just by the way they walk? Or sense someone was lying, even when their words seemed right? That's not intuition. That's pattern recognition, and it's one of the brain's most powerful forms of intelligence. Our minds are constantly scanning the world for connections, tones of voice, body language, facial expressions, even tiny habits. You hear a few notes of a song and instantly recall the artist, the lyrics, or the memory attached to it. That's your brain being a detective, linking pieces that others overlook. Leonardo da Vinci once said, to recognize a pattern is to gain insight, to see beyond the surface and uncover hidden connections. He wasn't just talking about art. He was describing a core function of genius. Pattern recognition isn't just about facts. It's about relationships, how things relate, how events unfold, how people behave over time. That gut feeling you get when something's off, that's your brain pulling from years of subtle observations you don't even realize you've stored. It's why some people can predict the twist in a movie, finish someone's sentence, or solve problems before others even see them coming. It's not magic, it's mastery of patterns. And it's not just for geniuses or artists. Anyone who sees connections where others see randomness is using this silent superpower. It's how we learn, adapt, invent, and understand the world. So, if you often notice the little things, connect ideas quickly, or just feel when something isn't right, that's your brain doing what it does best, decoding the invisible logic behind life. Pattern spotting isn't just clever. It's the fingerprint of an intelligent mind, constantly reading between the lines. Talking to yourself? Smart move. You're walking down the street, quietly muttering, okay, keys, wallet, phone, got it. Or maybe you're sitting at your desk whispering through a tricky problem, step by step. Sound familiar? Don't worry, you're not losing your mind. You might actually be showing how well it works. Talking to yourself, whether out loud or silently in your head, isn't a quirk. It's a sign of higher brain function. Psychologists call it self-directed speech, and it plays a crucial role in problem solving, focus, and emotional control. Think of it as your internal life coach. When you guide yourself through a task, first I'll write the email, then I'll double-check the numbers. You're actively structuring your thoughts. That's your brain organizing complex information in real time, and it starts early. Ever notice how little kids talk themselves through everything? I'm drawing a dog. Now I give it legs. That's their developing brain learning through language. As we grow older, that same habit usually becomes silent, but it doesn't disappear. In fact, it gets sharper. Self-talk helps us stay focused, motivate ourselves, and even reframe stress. Instead of spiraling, you might hear your own voice saying, it's hard, but I've handled worse. One step at a time. It's not just noise, it's cognition at work. Productive self-talk boosts memory, speeds up learning, and reinforces confidence. It turns a chaotic thought storm into a guided tour. Next time you catch yourself having a little chat with yourself, embrace it. You're not being weird. You're being smart. That inner voice. It's not a distraction. It's one of your brain's most powerful tools, and it's working overtime to help you win. Strategic laziness. Work smarter, not harder. You've probably been called lazy at some point, maybe for avoiding the long route, skipping steps, or finding shortcuts. But what if that laziness is actually a sign of intelligence? Bill Gates once said, "I choose a lazy person to do a hard job because they'll find an easy way to do it." And he had a point. This kind of laziness isn't about slacking off. It's about working smart. It's called strategic laziness, and it's the art of getting the same, or even better, results with less effort. Take German General Kurt von Hammerstein. He believed the most valuable officers weren't just clever or hardworking, but those who were both clever and lazy. Why? Because they had the clarity to see what mattered and the motivation to simplify everything else. This mindset isn't about doing nothing. It's about efficiency. It's figuring out how to streamline tasks, automate problems, or ditch unnecessary complexity. It's asking, what's the smartest path to the finish line? And then actually taking it. Science backs it up too. A 2015 study showed that people who enjoy thinking and problem solving tend to be less physically active because they're content sitting still, mentally untangling things others rush through. Smart laziness is about results. If you can finish in 10 minutes what others take 60 to do, you're not underachieving, you're outperforming. You're using insight, not brute force. If you've ever been scolded for cutting corners or taking the easy way, just smile. You might be tapping into a brain wired not for overexertion, but optimization. Remember, it's not always the hardest worker who wins. It's often the smartest one who knew when not to work hard at all. Creative chaos, the genius in the mess. Let's be honest, if your desk looks like a hurricane just passed through, with stacks of paper, tangled wires, yesterday's coffee mug, and maybe even a mystery snack wrapper, you're probably used to hearing, "How do you even work like this?" But here's a twist. That mess? It might actually be the mark of a brilliant mind. Take a look at Einstein. His workspace was famously cluttered. He once posed the question, if a cluttered desk is a sign of a cluttered mind, what does an empty desk signify? Turns out, he wasn't alone. Mark Twain and Steve Jobs also thrived in organized chaos. And science backs this up. That a study from the University of Minnesota found that people working in messy rooms generated more creative and unconventional ideas compared to those in neat, pristine spaces. Why? Because disorder forces the brain to break out of predictable patterns. Surrounded by randomness, your mind makes unexpected connections. A half-eaten apple next to a stapler might just spark your next big idea. That it's not that mess equals intelligence. But for some minds, creativity flourishes in the chaos. When you're focused on solving big problems or inventing something new, alphabetizing your folders isn't exactly a top priority. So if your space is wild, maybe that's just your brain dancing freely, thinking sideways, upside down, and in brilliant new directions. Messy doesn't mean lazy. It might just mean you're wired to create. Twisted laughs. Why dark humor signals intelligence. Ever hear a joke so dark, half the room gasps, and you laugh out loud? Here's one. A doctor lifts a sheet in the morgue. A woman looks down and says, "Yes, that's my husband. By the way, what detergent did you use to get him so white?" If that joke made you chuckle, congratulations, your brain might be running on high power. Dark humor is like a mental obstacle course. It's not just about being edgy or inappropriate. Understanding these jokes requires your brain to juggle multiple layers of meaning at once. You have to grasp the literal scenario, recognize the twisted or taboo twist, and then flip it all on its head to find the punchline. That's not easy, it's intellectual gymnastics. Studies confirm this. In one experiment, participants who understood and appreciated dark humor scored higher on intelligence tests and reported better moods with lower aggression. Turns out, the ability to laugh at the macabre might mean you've got a brain wired for complexity. Why? Because to appreciate this kind of humor, you need a level of emotional distance. You see the tragedy, you acknowledge the seriousness, and yet you reframe it in a clever, unexpected way. That's advanced cognition in action that it's like your brain takes something grim, spins it around, and turns it into irony. That transformation? It's creativity, empathy, logic, and a little bit of daring, all rolled into one. So next time you laugh at a twisted joke and someone says, "That's awful," just smile. You're not insensitive. You might just be intellectually ahead of the curve. Humor, especially the dark kind, could be your brain's way of showing off. Overthinking isn't overrated. You ever lie awake replaying a conversation from earlier, an awkward moment, something you said or didn't say? You analyze it, rewind it, rephrase it, again and again. It might feel exhausting. But what if that overthinking isn't a flaw? What if it's actually a sign of a high-functioning brain? Studies show a surprising link between anxiety and higher intelligence. It sounds counterintuitive, but the more your brain can imagine, the more possibilities it creates, including negative ones. That's not a malfunction, it's deep mental processing. Think about it. Intelligence involves pattern recognition, anticipation, and planning. And worrying? That's just your brain running simulations. It's preparing for every possible outcome, scanning for danger, figuring out solutions in advance. It's survival logic, evolved long ago. People who worried lived longer. The ones who said that cave might have a bear in it were more likely to survive and pass on their genes. So in a way, your racing thoughts are part of an ancient security system your brain refuses to shut off. But it's not just about fear, it's about learning. When you replay a moment or second-guess your choices, you're analyzing social cues, refining your behavior, and absorbing complex emotional information. That's powerful cognitive work. Of course, there's a limit. If it becomes overwhelming, professional help matters. But if your mind just won't stop rehearsing conversations or scanning the what-ifs, it could mean you're mentally wired for depth, thinking more, feeling more, seeing further ahead than most. So the next time someone says, "You think too much," take it as a compliment. Your brain isn't broken. It's busy preparing, analyzing, and understanding a complicated world. You're not just overthinking. You're outthinking. Midnight minds. Why night owls may be smarter. Society loves to praise the early bird. You know the saying, wake up early, get more done. But if your mind truly wakes up when the world winds down, you might be part of a smarter crowd. Then people realize night owls often get labeled as lazy or unmotivated, but science tells a different story. In fact, research shows that late risers tend to be more creative, more independent, and more likely to break from the norm. That rebellious streak? It's not defiance. It's originality. One study found that adolescents with evening chronotypes, those who preferred staying up late, were more nonconforming and innovative. These are the thinkers who question rules and carve new paths. It's not just a habit. It's biology. Sleep expert Professor Jim Horn noted that night owls often lean toward careers in the arts, design, or invention, fields that thrive on deep, abstract thinking. Their brains light up when most of the world goes dark. The silence, the solitude, the lack of distractions. It's a perfect storm for uninterrupted thought. And let's be clear, this isn't about laziness. Night owls don't do less, they just do it later. Their problem solving tends to be more flexible, their creativity more intense, and their thinking less bound by tradition. So if your best ideas come at 2 a.m. and your to-do list doesn't start until noon, don't worry. You're not broken. You're simply wired for a different rhythm, one that just might be more powerful than people think. While the world sleeps, your brain is wide awake, creating, imagining, and solving things in ways early birds might never see coming. Scribble smarts. Doodlers think differently. You're in a long meeting or a boring lecture. Your hand picks up a pen and starts scribbling spirals, stick figures, or maybe just your name over and over. To the person next to you, it might look like you're zoning out. But your brain? It's doing something brilliant. Turns out, doodling isn't a sign of boredom. It's often a signal of mental engagement. Psychologist Jackie Andrade put it to the test. In her study, participants listened to a dull voicemail message. Half of them were told to doodle. The result? The doodlers remembered nearly 30% more information than the non-doodlers. That's not an accident. It's science. When your mind starts to wander, thinking about dinner plans, your to-do list, or that embarrassing text you sent, doodling steps in. It acts like a low-level anchor, just enough activity to keep your brain from fully drifting off. It's your mental background processor, quietly keeping the system stable. Doodling taps into multiple parts of the brain, visual, motor, and auditory, creating a multi-sensory pathway for learning and memory. It's like taking notes with your subconscious, and no, it doesn't have to look like art. The benefit comes from the act itself, not the result. Circles, zigzags, random shapes, it's all part of your brain's clever way of staying awake. Focused and present. So if someone tells you to stop doodling and pay attention, feel free to smile. Because while others are tuning out, your brain is tuned in, quietly absorbing, processing, and retaining the moment that you're not distracted. You're just thinking differently. So if you recognized yourself in any of these habits, congrats. You might just be thinking on a higher level than you realized. Intelligence shows up in unexpected ways, and these quirks could be your brain's quiet superpowers at work. For more surprising insights into how your mind works, don't forget to subscribe. We've got more thought-provoking content coming your way.